Jason to give the keynote, which was great, and we got to talk to a whole audience of artists, which is extremely rare. So you get to talk about things that you wouldn't normally talk about, and there's no press here for the most part, so that's great because there's no one to reinterpret really what you said and put it out there and misinform the world on what you actually said. So it's a lot of fun, but it's also like a great place to inspire and get inspiration back.
This is your first workshop?
First time I've come, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Where does Lorne work?
Yeah. Oh, and,
Yeah.
I founded Oddworld Inhabitants, the video game company, with my partner Sherry McKenna.
Okay.
Back in 1994.
All right.
What games have we played that you made?
Yeah, this is people
Yeah,
don't
so-
know what you
okay,
did.
So,
Okay, so that's just you have to.
We made the Oddworld series of games. We made Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus and Munch's Odyssey and Stranger's Wrath. And then we transformed what we were doing, and we moved from the Central Coast of California, and we went up to Berkeley.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I've seen some of your presentations for games conventions or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember you going there. It's like I looked at the lists, know your audience. I remember saying
Yeah, know your audience.
Yeah.
And so lately we've been working on our new projects. We've got our new property, which is Citizen Siege, and that's I'm writing and directing that, and Sherry's producing that with John.
You can join us as well.
Real good. No. And John Williams is producing that. He produced the Shrek movies, but this isn't like Shrek. This is some hardcore stuff. And then we got another television series that we're developing, and that's a lot of fun. That's in development. I can't say much about that, but it's pretty exciting. We're pretty excited about it. And then all the interactive game components that go with each of these properties. And then we've also, while we've had this last couple of years of sort of pretty quiet, we've mapped out the Abe movie motion picture. So we're just waiting for Citizen Siege to get further down the road, and then Abe's Odyssey as a motion picture will kick in.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
What do you think about the workshop as how it impacts you? I mean,
well, I was telling Sherry before we came out here. I said, "Now, Sherry, we're flying up from San Francisco, and I go, you're going to see some of the best art happening faster than you've ever seen in your life, because we know some of these guys, right? And about 3 of my favorite artists in the world. I mean, of my very top favorite artists in the world, they're here. So that's hard to find, like 3 in one group. And then beyond that, a lot of like artists that I just love are here. Beyond those like very top, everyone knows who they are. And there's a lot of relatively unknown artists to the general populace that are just amazing. I mean, just amazing. People come up to me and they're going, "Hey, man, loved your work and inspired by your work, and it really inspired our work. And look at my work." And then they like pull out an iPhone, right? And they just start zipping through these images, and I'm just like, I wish ours was that good. It's so much better than what we did. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, damn, man, we inspired this? That's good to know, because it's way better than what we did. I always feel, and that's really exciting, because to see a group of people that traditionally are sort of loners, and artists tend to be sort of loners. But when they get in here, and then there's a whole bunch of other freaks of the same psychological and social makeup, running through their blood.
Actually, when I first got on concept art and I showed, it was Andrew doing his self-portraits every day, and this one I joined like there. Actually, it was the guy I was working with. It was a graphic guy from the company I was working back then, and he said, like, look at this. This is the new Renaissance. It's just people who are just trying to redefine things. And back then the whole community was like 100 people. Now it's almost 100,000 people. It's 90,000 people. It's just back then. It kind of shows the way that this thing, all these lonely people in the dark trying to, facing their own fears. Now it's a bit different, and we talked about this. So as long as due to my flights, I missed your presentation yesterday. How was it?
I thought it went pretty good. Actually, people they seem inspired, you know, and it's rare that you get a group this large of really talented artists. You know, there's people here from all over the world. So you ask people, and even though they might sound American, there's no accent. You go, where? Oh, I came in from Italy. Oh, I came in from El Salvador, Ecuador.
I came in from Romania.
Guatemala, Romania, Russia, China, Thailand, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. You know, the list goes on and on. France, London. You know, and that's an amazing group of people, right? But everyone feels very similar with things going on in the world today. You know, we know that the way people look at life, especially the way the artist looks at life, is we share a lot of the same feelings. So it gives us actually an opportunity to connect in a different way than we would normally connect. In the web and what's happening with conceptart.org, you know, and these things enable people that are normally isolated to connect and learn and fuel and mutually inspire, and that's really powerful chemistry, because in my opinion, you know, the artists play really important roles in society. Now, Wall Street doesn't necessarily think so. You know, they think your important role is like so many dollars an hour, and we'll do the games and do the movies for our publicly held companies and make good money for our investors. That's the role of the artist. But throughout history, the role of the artist is to inspire the whole populace, right? To inspire us. And when we get relegated to these roles of just being a cog in the machine for a bigger thing that's just a product, and the idea of the inspiration as to why we're making art in the first place gets marginalized into just, you know, consumer goods, then we're kind of missing something, and that also creates the disenfranchised artist, right? So a lot of our challenge is sort of getting back to those roots of being the focal point of our you know, path and as a culture and as a global people, to say the artist can show us something because he looks at the world differently, and he can show us something that is inspiring, that is going to take us somewhere else than where other people would like to take us, that the artist doesn't want to go, you know. And so this is a place where those kinds of ideas and those concepts are being exchanged, and that's exciting.
There's so many people who've been at the workshops, and I've been coming at 4 times. It's my 8th time at
Oh, really?
workshop.
Yeah.
And basically, that's I've seen some of the presentations. All the other people are coming on and saying other things, but I know that a lot of them are coming here for inspirations. I remember Lorne Lanning saying, after the workshop, I'm pumped for 6 months, and then I need another one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's pretty much how.
Well, this is you know, for me, the last 13 years we've run a company, you know, and I had to be the president of a company which had a lot of responsibilities, a lot of employees, and the reasons why I was making a lot of this art was sort of getting lost to the business of it in some respects, you know, and I never wanted to give up that pursuit and making stories and creating worlds that would inspire people the way that worlds like Orwell's worlds inspired me, you know. Alex Huxley's worlds inspired me with Brave New World. And I also felt like in our world today, the information we should be able to rely on as being informative has been completely filtered and completely misrepresenting what's happening out there, and so really only through entertainment, for the most part, are a lot of people actually getting turned on to real information, right? And that's very interesting, and that's a very interesting point in time where art is again being looked at as a place for inspiration for everyone. And so, you know, that's pretty exciting, and that's pretty rare. So it's a good time to be alive, even though there's a lot of bad things in the world happening.
That's a good philosophy.
So there's a couple of guys who ask, they say, Lorne, the Oddworld series were instantly classic and unique games. What initially inspired you to create them?
Well, you know, they were kind of quirky and they were kind of fun, and the inspiration was not nearly as fun. It wasn't nearly as quirky. In fact, it was really dark shit, man. I mean, it was some pretty heavy stuff. I had mentioned this in a talk, you know, growing up, being alone in a natural environment was where I found a lot of peace as an angry kid. There's a lot of different reasons, and there's a lot of different angry kids out there. But one of the antidotes that I found was just being around on a river, being around all the creatures in the swamps, you know, and that spoke to me. for lack of a better word. That spoke to me very powerfully. And I saw that landscape getting wiped out, being polluted, acid rain, extinction of species. And it was happening right before my eyes. And I went away to art school in New York City and met a lot of people that didn't spend any time out in the wilderness, and that wilderness was harder to find. And so they didn't have the same experiences and didn't value a lot of what I cherished as very, very dear. And I saw that the majority of the world's population was now living in cities and not connected to nature. And it was getting us more and more disconnected from our, for lack of a better term, our spiritual roots. And so Abe, to me, was about the story of, the dark side of globalization, the exploitation of animals, people, turning everything into the machine, flipping the meaning of everything, turning it into doublespeak and packaging it as product, And so what I wanted to do is I saw, video games is a place where people are spending a tremendous amount of mind share, right? They're spending hundreds of hours in a single experience, and that's really unique. Meaning, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, it's hard to say.
Okay, what's the one you've watched the most times?
Ooh. I think I've watched Oldboy a lot of times. I watched. You're talking to a movie freak.
Right, hey,
I mean, I'm
it's Korean cinema. I love it, man. Oldboy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you watch it 5 times, 10 times, 20 times?
Yeah. Let's say 10 times.
10 times.
Yeah. There are
movies
other
less than 2 hours long.
Yes.
So that 10 times is equal maybe about 18 hours of total consumption in that experience.
I know, but I'm going to tell you something else. I'm working in video games industry. I'm doing games. Mm-hmm. But I prefer to go to movies, and I'm going like 3 or 4 movies per week at cinema, paying the ticket. Mm-hmm. I prefer not to know anything about the movie I'm going to see. I want to go like a newborn baby from the second 0 up to the full, and I'm seeing 3 bad movies at least until one good one comes.
Yeah.
But I prefer to do this because in our society, I know that no matter how bad it is, and I give my money there, it will be over in 2 hours. While the game can spawn impressive moments here and there where it can be great, but I'm investing my own time, which is hundreds of hours.
Right.
And just knowing this, sometimes I'm thinking before double clicking that icon, do I want to get in there or not? That this just because I'm really considering my seconds, in entertainment.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. So,
but still,
I don't play.
As a medium, the video games are such more. It's beyond the time you spend on a book, even if you reread it. And
so my point there is that with the mind share that the experience of video games is capturing, what are we really offering within the sort of nutritional value? Meaning, how does it inspire us the way a movie like Apocalypse Now might have inspired us, the way a movie like The Killing Fields or Midnight Express, or the recent ones with Syriana. I mean, these are entertainment experiences. Star Wars, Kubrick's movies.
Yeah.
How those experiences, they go by relatively quickly, but they last a lifetime in our minds. And the video games, we spend far more hours in them than we do on a 2-hour movie, but we walk away with a lot less. We don't have the inspirational motivations, and that's because of the way we're shaping our content. Meaning,
that's true.
It's because it's treated as a commodity, as a packaged good.
It's not. No, I believe that's basically the interactive factor allows people to miss the point a lot of times. So what we're creating worlds, basically, not necessarily entertainment moments. We give the tools to the player and let them make the music if possible.
Some of that.
Some of them manage to make great music, and then after a game session they get on and talk about it so passionately. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they just miss the notes and they get frustrated or whatever. And the problem is that in the end, if you manage to create a powerful universe like Oddworld, you don't have to play the game, you just watch it for a few, you just play the first level, that's enough. You get the message, you get the world and everything. Or you can have, a universe where you just have to click and you're a multi-MMO with a few other million people, and in the end you don't get the same juice out of it.
And maybe you get different juices, right? So sometimes, a lot of times, gamers are not social people. but MMO allows them to become more social. It takes away, it provides them with the mask that allows them to confront the world in a way that normally they may not. They might be too self-conscious for it. They might be too, whatever. And it doesn't mean they're not special people, right? But that they can start to connect with other people in a virtual space has a lot of benefits, That they can fail at something and try again and then succeed and feel great. That has a lot of benefits for all the other applications in their life. But what I'm talking about is why, with the time that you spent with something, what is our personal potential as designers, as creators, that when they walk away from that experience, no matter how much time they said, but let's say they spent 100 hours in that game, right? When they walk away, it changes how they're going to perceive the world around them. It inspires them in a way to pursue different tracks, different goals, different passions, to find more about themselves than they might not have found before, the way a great movie does, the way a great novel does, the way a great poem does, the way Pink Floyd's music did. This is yet to really permeate the game medium. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but when it does, we're going to be much more excited about the possibilities.
There are a few games who are definitely managing here and there. You got like Ico or
love
these kind of stuff that just your mind just makes popcorn.
Yeah.
But on
popcorn.
Yeah, it's
nice.
My English is not that.
No, I love it. I love it. I think it's perfect.
And but on the other level, I believe that still, it's still sort of like the industry and the fear of risk and everything that's still shaping the whole content much more than it's not so much personal opinion of the creator as more as like we still value the gamer and to let him try to drive the whole things, in which sometimes
it's a mistake. It's a mistake. Because what it's doing is it's clamping the capacity of the medium. But the reason it's happening is quite simply one major factor. Yes, increased cost equals increased risk equals this. But if there were vision at the top of these companies, the way we had vision in the movie studios in the 1920s, 1930s, where the heads of the movie studios were not just bankers and financiers and accountants, but they were guys that were very passionate about telling stories that would make a better America, right? And that's what they were doing. That's what those studio heads were doing. They were damn determined to make great scripts, right? And now studio heads are damn determined to make lots of profit. And it's a very different sort of energy feeding the machine. And so the great auteurs of our time are having, are getting more and more frustrated as it becomes more of a financial endeavor with purely financial goals rather than a more enlightening endeavor where the medium has a chance to express one's feelings.
The problem with entertainment, which is one of the benefits of entertainment, is in the same time, which was like president of Nintendo said once when the whole gaming industry was in decline. So it's like, I feel like the cook, like the chef of a king. I know that he's full now, but I know he'll be hungry soon.
That's wise.
Yeah. Everybody gets tired of entertainment, no matter what you throw at them. And I'm pretty sure that at some point, the whole market will be tired of the same stuff, and they will require, just as you see in the movies, they're like sometimes it just boom, all the movies with pirates and fantasy and everything, where have they been? And then they just go and you go to more psychological movies. And I'm sure there will be a time when we're gonna have the psychological kind of games and more deep. And then like people like us who've been growing with the games since we were kids, like before us there were no video games. And right now at our age we need something else. We need those 2 hours. We need something that will make our mind popcorn. And so I'm pretty sure somebody will have to come up with this kind of games that we will be interested to buy too. So it's, this thing is growing. It's still very young. So
but I think that more of those games, they're going to come from PC. They're going to come from online. They're not going to be coming from the console business. And there's a lot of economic reasons why. There's a lot of financial reasons why. There's a lot of risk versus reward for the creators. The creators online now have more possibilities to have more influence on their product, more influence on
the
their
other hand, the consoles are getting online. So
are getting what?
Online.
Yeah, but who cares? It costs 3 times as much to make a game for the console.
Yeah,
Well, that's a huge factor when you talk about going out and raising money.
Yeah, but
for
on the other hand, you have all the Xbox Live and all the PS, the small things on the consoles. I think that there will always. One of the things that I beautifully watched when the small consoles were coming out, and when everybody was talking about the next gen and everything, and there were people who've been doing, pixel graphics for all their life, and suddenly you thought that they were gonna go out of business, and then the whole cell phones came out, and they were like in a completely new booming business.
Sure.
And so on. So there will always be, this.
Well, no. The cell phone games were much cheaper alternative. I mean, here's the thing: if you watch trends without following the money, you're not going to come to the right conclusions or the accurate conclusions. You got to follow the money. If you want to go out and make a film, and you don't talk to the film studio about why it's going to make them money, you're never going to get that film financed.
Sure.
So these things we have to consider. Personally, I have no interest in console games anymore as a medium for me, because if the manufacturers of these machines don't care about the tools that we spend tens of millions of dollars to build and make us have to rebuild them in 5 years, I have no interest in supporting anything that they're doing. Because as an artist, they don't get it. And as content creators, they don't get it at all. So if they're not going to support the reason why we're doing it, I have no interest in helping them support to make more money for their shareholders. Why should we? This is where people like myself, many of the top designers in the game industry, they're moving away from consoles. They're going towards social, user-created content, online, connected experiences that do not have the retailer in the way, that do not have the publishers telling them what it should be. And you watch, in the next 2 years, you wait till you see all the announcements of so many of the world's top designers pushing in this direction and saying, why? Because I want a tool set that when Sherry was in the computer graphics in the early 80s, right? Making computer graphics at Robert Abel and Associates, doing the movie The Last Starfighter. She produced all those visual effects in computer generation back then, right, in 83, 84. Well, we're still using those tools today. That software from Robert Abel and Associates became Wavefront software, became merged with Alias software. That became Maya. Okay, that was an evolutionary software path. The console game business, every 5 years, just throw out all your tools, man, start over. And that's bullshit. And that only happens when you have engineers saying, this is what it should be, and the artists have no say.
Exactly.
So if people who are building
true.
Tools where the artists have no say, I have no interest in those people or their manifestations, because it's not conducive to what we're about here, which is the artistic ideal, getting out ideas, creating great stories that inspire people. They go, why do you need great stories to inspire people when I'm giving you 3 more processors? And you go, you know what you can do with your 3 more processors? You know what you can do with those fucking processors?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see some questions. Do you still do art these days?
I started again after the Syntec 21-inch on-screen tablet came out.
Oh, really?
But I'll tell you why.
You love the Syntec?
Oh, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Do you have the art brush? Do you use that? The one that's having
I was just asking Andrew, Android
Yeah?
Jones about
Yeah?
that, right? And I was asking him, so I have to go get one after he answered. Because he's like, well, it's pretty good. And I'm like, if it's pretty good, if you think it's pretty good, I got to go get one.
Yeah, he doesn't like it because it doesn't have a secondary button. I love
Yeah.
it because, my strokes are
Yeah.
just there. And on Cintiq and Painter, you can do amazing things with that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go there. And
Yeah.
the secondary button, for me, it always just gets in my way.
There you go.
Because what I have is the 21-inch Syntec, and then connected to it is a 30-inch cinema display, and connected to that is another 30-inch cinema display. So I have two, from anything I want over here, I keep all this information up. Then I can just drag it over here, and here I paint, right? And then this comes back over here, and I use the mouse and the thing. But, when it comes to digital painting, when we were at Rhythm and Hues, the visual effects company in Hollywood, we didn't have Photoshop. Photoshop wasn't out yet. So we had to create our own, and we wrote, and I designed, and Steve Gray, who's one of our partners, and a guy named Marcel, who's now the Chief Technical Officer of EA LA. They wrote the paint system, and I designed it, how it should work, and together we made this so we could do digital matte painting for motion pictures in 1980, that was 88 and 89. before we could go buy Photoshop, you know?
Yeah.
So when it comes to that,
I was back under communism.
yeah, and I was painting with a mouse, you know, and it was very frustrating. So then I like stopped, you know, when we got into more storytelling, and I was able to hire more people to do what I was doing, and but the Syntech, there's a good story. And Sid Mead, who's a friend of ours, and he's, you know, Sid Mead, right? He said, you know, have you tried those new tablets? And I said, no. And he said, well, you know, they sent me one, because he's Sid, right? So he gets it for free. I'm paying for the damn thing. And he goes, you know, it's pretty good, but it's not quite like real paint. And I'm going, if this guy's saying it's not quite like real paint, it's time for me to buy one. So I went out and bought one, you know, because they wouldn't give it to me for free, the bastards. And then started painting on it. It was like, yeah, getting back into that mix, getting back into having some fun, you know, getting back into when an artist didn't necessarily come through with the project for whatever, you know. Sometimes it happens, right? Some artist somewhere you hire, it's like, I'll just do it now.
What,
you know?
What drives you in art?
The possibility, what it can be, you know, what it can be and what it can do for people, what it did for me. You know, the art opened up world history and the contemporary landscape for me in a way that no history class ever could, no news channel ever could, in many ways no novel ever could. I mean, as visual thinkers, we receive a lot of information symbolically, and there's been a lot of really important artists throughout history, and they've changed the way we see things. And our future is very dependent upon artists showing us there's an alternative to a way of thinking.
Who do you want to inspire now?
Everyone. You know, it's a global people. You know, I mean, I see people. I don't see Americans.
I know.
I don't see Romanians. It's people. So, who do I want to be inspired, or who inspires me?
I know. The question is like, who do you want to inspire? It's like you want to inspire people because by inspiring people, you make them change. And there's some people that you look at there and they just don't change for on, and they are changing your life, and they don't see it, as you just pointed out.
Yeah.
So maybe sometimes when you do something, because I remember getting into a gallery, and I was thinking, none of my stuff is good to be put on the wall, because I never thought that I could put something on a wall just to inspire, or to, you know, to make somebody look at it and say, I want this in my room, because every time I enter my room, I want to hit me back in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
So after that, I just started thinking differently, because I said, maybe I should, you know, think
well, in some ways, at that point, what you're doing is you're embracing more of your personal potential, more of your personal power, right? When this is part of what my talk was about yesterday was when we can make a painting and it can be a great painting, but we can make a painting and it can change people's lives.
That's true.
Right? Now, the Nazis understood this very well, and their painting changed a lot of lives, right? But it wasn't coming from a good place.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
What happens when it's coming from a good place? And then we see some great art that changes our lives. And when we see that, and if we feel that we have the power to change, to influence people, to show them hope, faith, whatever it is that we think they should be looking at, even if it's really dark stuff, it's bad things, you know, it's important.
Any advice for young artists? Okay. Any advice for young artists?
Work hard. There is no easy path to learn this stuff. You know, when you work with really talented people, they don't want to be dealing with struggling in the medium. They want to be dealing with delivering the message. So the challenges with the medium is a lot of work, and the best people have all gone through that challenge. Now, they're still challenged in other ways, but it becomes more about the message of what they're trying to build, the image of what they're trying to build, rather than the technical approach. So you have to transcend the technical in order to get closer to just manifesting our ideas and our desires on the
How hard you were working when you were trying to get in? Of course, there were so different times. It's kind of
truthfully.
I mean, I'm not sure how it's going to translate to these guys, where the industry is pretty much shut down for an aspiring guy, unless he's so good that it breaks all the barriers. I mean,
which also, you know, when people feel left out, they seek other alternatives. And that's where we see a lot of interesting things happening. The coolest things happening in video games are not happening where we expect them. They're happening where we don't expect them. They're happening with 2 guys in a garage still who are creating an MMO, and for kids, and it's called, you know, Club Penguin or something, right? No one even heard of that. All of a sudden, there's millions of people in there. And all of a sudden, these guys are rich beyond belief, you know, for doing where their passion took them. That's where it's really interesting, because they found that while the industry that was available to try and pursue, they'd just be climbing up and up and up. But instead, they said, we can do this ourselves. And they just find an alternative path. Look at Massive Black. Look at Concept.org, right? It said, you know, we could try and go back to Art Center and create a curriculum that's only, or we could just do it ourselves, do it new, do it through the connected website. We'll have people, anyone who's interested on the globe, who has internet access, who wants to get into what we're into, can get into it, right? So that's new thinking. But that new thinking is oftentimes you know, what they say is necessity is the mother of invention, right?
That's right.
So when you feel like you can't express yourself, you find a way to do it. And the more you feel repressed, or the more you feel like you can't make something happen, then it makes you, then I'm not going to go that way, I'm going to go this way. And that's when we also start to see really exciting things happen. So while times start to get dark and bleak, at the same time, that's right around the time when something really brilliant is about to emerge, because that artistic spirit isn't going to take it anymore.
It's true, but on the other hand, every time you get frustrated, you can try to turn away. And sometimes what you need, like when you find a wall, you just need to jump it or break it to get through.
Yeah.
Instead of like going, what I discovered is that people are much more open in the US, and then they embrace much easier a change of direction. And people are like, oh, you know, I tried that, and then I changed. How old are you? 35. So you just changed everything. Yeah. How many times you changed your life like this? Oh, it's my 5th time I changed completely. And then you wonder if they are going to really get to a real bottom of the things, to, you know, getting into a deeper, like some guys know their voice, and no matter what walls you put them, they just break them and they reach deeper. But it's true, sometimes you face a wall and you look the other way and you find a miracle. It's like, because it was there actually.
And the key is, don't give up.
That's true.
Because if you give up, none of your dreams are going to happen, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And so if we don't give up, I mean, personally, I've wanted to give up the whole way, man. It's way too hard, you know? Like, I grew up poor, so the biggest thing I was afraid of was being poor. I mean, when I first, you know, when I knew I was going to have to make it on my own, it was like the northeast of the United States is pretty cold and wet and snowy, you know? New York City's not so friendly all the time if you don't have money. So that terrified me. I mean, literally terrified me. So it made me work 80 hours a week. That was my clock. I go, okay, if I have to earn a living doing anything, washing dishes, driving forklifts, you know, I did all these things, right? If I have to make a living doing that and it takes me 40 hours a week, well, I still have another 40 hours a week that I can improve my craft, right? And the worse a job that I had, just trying to get some money to pay the rent and pay for school, the more it made me work harder at my art. And eventually, all I was doing was art.
What was the worst job you had?
The worst job I had?
Yeah.
I loaded and unloaded fruit trucks and produce trucks in the South Bronx of New York City, in the worst neighborhood in the United States.
I unloaded trucks with, they were having iron things for heating.
Yeah.
They were 400 kilos, I don't know how much that is in pound, in the cold weather, and your hands were getting stick to that. I was like, they were like 8 or 10
hard
people.
Work, right? Hard work makes us appreciate when we have it good. You know, this is where we have a lot of, you know, there's a lot of spoiled people in the world too, right? They grew up, it was very easy, everything was given to them, and then when they come and they ask for a job, they say, so hey, when am I going to be a millionaire? And you go, I don't know. What company is going to make you a millionaire? It's not going to happen here, man. Because if you're not coming here for the work, if you come here because you think the world owes you something, take a hike, man. Go find someplace else. This is about people who want to do great work. This is about people who appreciate the environment that allows them to do something that they're passionate about. Some people take for granted that they don't have to work hard and they should be rewarded for it. Unfortunately, the real world does not reward that. In the real world, if you want to paint like these guys, any of these people here that you admire, if you want to work like that, It does not come easy, and it came easy for none of these people. They might have had a good skill in the beginning. They might have had a natural tendency to say, when I was 4, my mother knew I was an artist. You know? Great, we all knew that. Then you go to a great art school and you go, wow, these guys are really good. You know, it's hard work. Anyone out there who's doing something that we appreciate, hard work got them there. And a lot of people aren't willing to do the work and put in the time and keep on going and not give up and do what it takes to transcend the barriers that want to say, why don't you just give up? Why don't you just go get a job in a restaurant?
Just one more. Tell
Sure.
me a moment that gave you courage and made you feel good and gave you, you know, the moment when you felt like, you know, this was good. This is, you know, like a reward moment.
Well, I've had a lot of them. And some of them were, I mentioned a man in the talk the other day who was an artist. And his name was Jack Goldstein. And he's since killed himself, you know, overdosed on drugs and died. And before I knew this man, I saw his paintings in galleries in New York. And I was studying art, and I was like blown away. So it was at the Whitney Museum for the annual biennial. It was at the Museum of Modern Art. It was at the best galleries in Soho. And I'd see his paintings again and again, and I'd be like, who is this guy, man? Wow. I mean, they were just so powerful, man. They just knocked me out, right? And then I met the guy. And then I was like, oh, I got to, and then I got to know him, and then I got to work with him, right? And that was one of those moments of like, if you're seeking it, you know, now I'm so blessed now, because when I'm working on a project and we're working on something and I go, who's the right artist in the world for this project? I just look through all the work, find that guy, call him. I go, hey man, you want to do some work? And they're usually like, oh yeah, you know, cool, that would be cool, you know? And that's great. So that moment showed me that who we might aspire to be or who we might really admire does not have to be inaccessible. But we have to be willing and, you know, sort of brave enough to knock on the door and just say, hey, I'm nobody, but would you talk to me? You know, I love your stuff. And when we do that, we get rewarded. And the truth is, I've had, truthfully, tens of thousands of those moments since then, but that was one of the most memorable ones. This woman sitting right here is another one. This was a person who was an instrumental figure in the history of computer graphics. And I knew about her, watched her on the HBO, watched her on television shows before I never knew who she was. And then when I got the chance to start working with her, I was like, oh my God. But I didn't tell her that. I was like, you know, I was acting cool like everyone else, right? You know, it was like, I had to be cool. I couldn't, be like, oh, God, you know, you know, but I was like, you know what that is? You know, that's it. And then eventually, you know, I worked with her as a service. You know, she was the big client at Universal. We were the service at Rhythm and Hues, and then I got to know her, and then I got to infect her brain, and I was like worked on her, and I convinced her to run a company, you know, convinced her to leave her career, convinced her that better opportunities, convinced her most importantly that we could take characters that she loved and make stories that she loved. And that was really what convinced this person, who was in an entirely different league from me, to actually want to join me and become a partner and go on to the next level. And so what I have advice for young people is, you know, you have to don't set your goals based on what you think you can achieve. Set your goals on what you want to, what you wish you could achieve, and then just believe you can. And then you're going to do a lot of things along the way that you wouldn't have done had you not believed that you could.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from the book?
Prefer art school or being self-taught? A lot of people are asking that.
I think there's, you know, tremendous benefits to both. I think art school, you know, if it's a university, you have to have a lot of extracurricular stuff. And so you'll have to learn more history. You'll have to learn some philosophy. You'll have to, you know, that's not bad, right? You may not want to learn it, but that's not bad. And if you can get that information, it might make you better at what you do in your art. If you can't have access to that, and a lot of people in the world can't, financially is increasingly the case, and especially in this country, and there's alternatives, right? Alternatives could be, now there's schools that are more specialized. See, when I went to art school, when I was a little shit, you know, when I went to art school, there was 2 companies that employed illustrators full time, and I was studying as an illustrator. It was Hallmark Cards and Walt Disney, right? And if you didn't want to work for either of those companies, you probably could never go get a full-time job. You'd have to be a freelancer. It's a completely different world today. There are tens of thousands of jobs for artists that are full-time jobs. You know, that's a tremendous change. So, I lost the origin of the question, but if that helped to answer. Self-taught, yeah. So if you don't have access to that stuff, now you have like conceptart.org, right? Where you can look at the best, in many cases, the best people in the world doing what they do, and they're sharing it with you. And you can ask a question, and you'll get an answer. I mean, that was not available in the 1980s, you know?
Were you admiring your teachers at the university?
Well, I was lucky because I went to School of Visual Arts.
Okay.
So I had the best illustrators in the world were my teachers. And that's why I went there, because I wanted to be around the best. It was really important to me, because if I wasn't around the best, maybe I'd wind up homeless. You know, that's where I was coming from. It was mostly fear. But I believe if you, through books, through looking at other people's work, there was a guy, Steve Olds was the original production designer at Oddworld. He was completely self-taught. And to this day, he's one of the best production designers I've ever worked with in my life. He was self-taught, but he had discipline. Astounding, relentless discipline. And that's, you know, if you're going to be self-taught, you can do it. And you can be the best by being self-taught. But you have to have great discipline.
That's true. Do you have any other questions? Or is it... You tired?
Nah, man, go ahead. I'm here, so if you want to ask away.
What's more important?
What you want to know is why you left Sloan and went to Berkeley.
Okay.
So ask the question again.
What's the question again?
Why he left. One of the questions they asked is why we left San Luis Obispo and went to Berkeley.
Okay.
Because the Bay Area, answering the question, why did we leave SLO and go to Berkeley? The Bay Area is, in my opinion, a hotbed for digital artists globally. I mean, I can watch a movie, and I can tell you where the animation was done before I see the credits and before I see who made the movie. I can watch a film and I go, that's LA-mation, right? Because I can tell there's a different soul in the work. And I wanted to go to Berkeley to be around, really smart people that were really open and accepting and tolerant, right? Berkeley has a tremendous and celebrates its diversity, tremendous diversity, and it celebrates it. And it's very important to me. The more I'm in an area where the people are more closed-minded, like more white it is, the less happy I am, right? I don't want to be around a bunch of ignorant white people. And I'm not saying SLO is ignorant white people, but it has its percentage. And in that percentage, it's a lot more than in Berkeley. And Berkeley is way cool. To me, I think it's one of the best cities in the world. And it has a lot of the greatest people in the world. And a lot of important things have happened there historically that give it a lot of its heritage. And the Bay Area, the music, you know, the music of the 60s and 70s, the artists, the Pixar, you know, so right down the street from us is Pixar, Phil Tippett Studios, across the bridge is Lucas, you know. There's a lot of things happening, so many game companies, so many digital artists, the Crucible, the Crucible that's, you know, the school of the fire arts, you know, the Burning Man culture, you know, all this sort of centers out of that area. So I think it's a hotbed, and it's going to continue to be a hotbed where digital artists want to go to around the world. And so we felt that we were in a place where anyone who was good, who we needed to hire, had to be relocated and moved there because they didn't live there. There's no, you know, I mean, not many people live there. So we had to get closer to where the core of the culture really was. We feel that's the Bay Area.
All right. Well, things are. Thank you. Things are, you know, getting wrapped up here. I guess the day is over. That was an amazing interview.
Hey man,
thank you.
My pleasure. That was
a
good question.
I'll try probably to you know, ask you probably tomorrow again. Are you having more demos something tomorrow?
No, I'm just kicking around and
okay, yeah,
learning.
I'm gonna let you relax and everything, and then just probably just grab you for another opinion just on the workshop and everything.
Yeah, my pleasure.
2 questions.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
I hope everybody enjoyed it.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.